Speaking of which, our relocation deadline is July. Now, owning a business myself, having moved my business, working with DCRA on a regular basis because this is part of a requirement for my business, the kind of business that I do, we're down there almost every single day. I know that it takes many, many months knowing the system to do just about anything. That's getting a permit to do electrical work. That means getting a permit for having architectural plans approved. And up to this point, none of those things have been done. And when the programmers have tried to reach out to the general manager, many of us in this community, in this room, have connections and ties to many city agencies, and we have literally the door has been shut on us. So does anybody want to talk about the length of time that it took for us to move the last time we moved and the implications of where we are needing to find a new home in 6 months?
Well, generally, gearing up to move a radio station is at least a year-long process, if not 2 years, because, what people may not understand is that in order to move into it's not as though we can just move into any vacant space. Wherever we move, there's a certain amount of architectural retrofitting that has to be in place, that has to make sense for a radio station. So obviously we have people out in your viewing audience who are familiar with abandoned school buildings and the like in the community. Well, unfortunately, a radio station can't just move into any building. A radio station has to have certain technical specifications in place in order to move. And here we are, it is December, and we are to move by the end of June 2012. So the clock is ticking. We're closing in on less than 6 months, and there's no concrete plan in place.
And two things, Robin, we need to procure a building, a physical space. But the equipment we have right now is functionally obsolete. Again, 20th century versus 21st century. We have to get brand new equipment. So we're talking about two major dollar targets that we have, again, no idea, no comprehension of what it is, how close, how far we are to it, and how long we have to get to it. And again, since they're depending mostly on on-air fund drives, we're the ones who are basically going to the listeners, trying to raise, put our hands out to raise those dollars. And it's got to be a collaboration. We've got to work together with the community, with the LSB, with the CAB in order to make this happen. And right now, we're in the dark.
Meaning that the manager has not apprised the programmers of what is really in place for us to do that, when we in fact also have resources that we can bring to the table, which he is not wanting to listen to in any way.
I'd like to pick up on that point. I interviewed Mayor Vince Gray the day before he was elected, and after the interview, I walked with him. I said, we have to move soon. Is there anything you could do to help us? He gave us 3 places to look into on that day. The point of it is that everybody in the city wants to help us. Mm-hmm. People in D.C. love this station. The general manager has not shown a willingness not only to reach out to these people, but again, I use this word, betraying the community. So number one question you get as you move through the community, have you all found a place yet? And of course, that affects revenues, because you're only giving money to a station that you don't know, that may not exist. Right. Secondly, for him to fire the one person who was the prime mover in moving us to where we are now, the one person who has experience at the station in moving the station, the one person who has experience of all of the equipment, as raggedy as it is, the one person who understands what we need, he fires them. That only shows a lack of vision, but it's just dumb.
We have about 3 minutes. Joni, do you want to take up
I'm
that
just,
conversation? Actually, we have 2 minutes. Go
I
ahead.
echo with what everyone just said. It's a very sad state of affairs that the management style doesn't embrace everybody who has these skills. You have a Robin Holden who has all kinds of skills that could be used to helping us move. As Tom just mentioned, the person who had the experience, which took 26 months to move us the last time, Bob Daughtry, was fired. You know, that's not the style that we need. Those are not the kind of the wisdom that we need to help us make this huge leap into a new building. It's just very, very troubling, and it makes you wonder.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, because several people at the table have stated that Bob Daughtry has been fired. But one thing that we do need to let the listening and viewing audience know is that he was fired without just cause.
Mm-hmm.
And
no stated cause.
Fired without just cause, and has not been privy to a customary exit interview or any kind of documentation to suggest why he was fired.
From what I understand, that the general manager, John Hughes, moved Mr. Daughtry into a position that was non-existing, not funded, and then
7 days later,
7 days later eliminated that position. So that the listening and viewing audience needs to understand that situation. He moved him to a position that did not exist, was not funded, and then eliminated 7 days later. So that is a backdoor way of moving someone out of a position where more than probably 85% of the programmers were in favor of him continuing to be our program director. He was the interim program director, but was looking forward to him being the permanent program director and allowing him to lead us into the future. It's, my goodness,
No.
time flies. Yeah, well, we have like maybe 30 seconds. Any closing statements?
Just that's the worst kind of passive-aggressive behavior you can find, okay, in terms of management style.
I think there's a lack of communication, a lack of sense of urgency that the management seems to be lacking. And this experience has been very challenging, but I'm happy that we're able to work in concert with LSB at this juncture and see how we can make things turn around for the station.
Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of our program. I'd like to thank Willard Jenkins, Mayuki Williams, Tom Porter, and Joni Eisenberg. All of our guests are programmers and hosts at WPFW 89.3 FM, so be sure to tune in next time as we continue to bring you the information that is important to you. For more information about PFW Programmers Association, you can visit their website at www.pfwpass.org. Thank you for tuning in.